Hi, everyone. I will try to share my screen now. I've been having a little technical problems before I entered this session, so if there are any... Okay, perfect. Thanks, Alexandra. That's good. Well, I just start presenting. My presentation turned out to be a little bit long. I hope I don't bore you, and can stay in the session as long as they want to. So we will have a little time to chat later on. Okay, great. So welcome everyone and good evening. My name is Lara Beckmann. I'm a fashion designer. I've been working in the fashion industry for 3 years now for global brands as Adidas and C&A. And now I'm based in Berlin working as a freelance designer and deepening my... The reason why I've been becoming more interested in sustainable fashion is due to the fact that while I was working as a designer, I have been noticing the effects of fast fashion, that garments are losing their value and their purpose in our society. And I've been questioning my position as a designer, asking myself if I really want to add to this craziness, knowing that the production of garments are harming our environment. Yeah, I believe that sustainable fashion and circular fashion can be the answer to this problem and bring back purpose and beauty and value into our fashion industry. I will now give you a little run through about what I will talk today. First of all, I will talk about the state of fashion, its environmental impact. Then I will talk about the most commonly used fabrics in the fashion industry that we all have in our... I will talk about the recycling market and the second-hand market and tell you what you can do to become more eco-friendly when it comes to your wardrobe. My goal with this presentation is to help you to make more informed decisions when you go shopping for clothes, and to let you know that you can make a difference by choosing more sustainable materials when you go shopping in the future. The fashion industry is responsible for 10% of all the global carbon emissions, and it's the second largest water polluting industry. As most of you know, most fashion is produced in developing countries where labor, health and safety regulations are almost non-existent. This leads to the problem that factories releasing wastewaters into the water systems without any polluting the environment and harming also the health of the population living in those countries. The fashion consumption has doubled over the last 20 years, as you can see in this graph. An average person buys 60% more clothes than they used to, but they use them half as much. So fast fashion practices have made garments become disposable. They're going to most probably going to continue because our global population is growing and the middle classes in developing countries is growing too, and they all want to buy as much fashion as we do for the same price. So the impact will continue to increase. Sorry for interrupting. I'm just checking on the chat if everything is good with the video. Get solved. In this picture, you can see the different stages of a garment's life cycle, from the fiber production to the manufacturing stage, to the use stage where we come in as consumers, and to the end of the life of the garment where it's being disposed or sold on a second-hand market. In all those stages, water pollution is occurring, and carbon. And I will tell you now which of the stages most pollution is involved. Okay, it's freezing. Okay, I'll just talk a little bit slower then. So as you can see here on this chart, around 70% of the carbon emissions from the fashion industry are coming from the fiber extraction. And around 10% are coming from the retail and the transportation, and 20% are coming from us as consumers, meaning that when we wash our garments, we use energy and water, and release chemicals also into our water systems by the detergents we use. The reason why the production stage is the most carbon textile industry has relatively low-tech production systems that are not keeping pace with the growth of the industry. This concludes in the fact that 70% of the garment's environmental impact is decided at the design stage. So choosing more sustainable materials from the beginning in the design stage definitely will have a big and I will now present you which fabrics are being used and which are more sustainable alternatives. So there are four major categories in the fashion industry being used for the fiber production. The first category that I will talk about are synthetic fibers like polyester. The second category are natural fibers as cotton and hemp and linen. And the third category are cellulosic fibers. Fibers, in their production, a lot of chemicals are being used. And the fourth category are animal fibers, which obviously derive from animals. The first category, as I told you, that I'm going to talk about are petroleum-based fibers. They make up 65% of our clothes. The transformation uses a lot of toxins into our atmosphere and into our water, as well as, of course, the extraction of the oil itself requires a lot of energy. Those fabrics are strictly non-biodegradable, so they stay in our environment for the next couple of thousands of years. They're being used so much because they're really cheap alternative to natural fibers. They can be produced at a large scale and very typical use petroleum-based fibers are fabrics like polyester, spandex, acrylic, and nylon. A sustainable alternative to conventional polyester, for example, would be recycled polyester. The most commonly used recycled polyester is made out of plastic bottles, and this fabric needs 50% emits 50% less carbon emissions compared to conventional polyester. But also here, this fabric is non-biodegradable and stays in our environment. Polyester can be, there are two methods to recycle polyester. One mechanical that is used more often, but this has limits. The fabrics cannot be recycled infinite times because they lose their quality. So often recycled polyester and virgin polyester are being blended in products. There is a chemical recycling process which would make it possible to recycle polyester infinite times. The process is highly used. Question that that a lot of people have is, well, if synthetic fibers are so harmful for the environment, why don't I only then just buy natural fiber garments? But this is a false conclusion, because you just shift the impact of your wardrobe from more carbon emission intense garments to less carbon emission water systems. The first natural fiber I would like to talk about is cotton. It's the most commonly used fiber in the fashion industry. 25% of the global fabric production is cotton. Cotton grows in really dry areas and needs a lot of water to grow. Around 3,000 to 7,000 liters of water developing countries where people are being underpaid and are exposed to unsafe, even deadly workplace conditions through the pesticides that are used to grow cotton. Another big problem with conventional cotton is that 95% of the world's the cotton in the world is produced with genetically modified seeds. For example, and make these companies create a monopoly on the market and make the farmers dependent on them. On top of that, those genetically modified cotton plants are becoming a monocrop and destroy the biodiversity of our environments and become more vulnerable to pests, which results in the fact that they will need a lot more pesticides and insecticides. You can notice I'm a bit nervous. Sustainable cotton is definitely organic cotton. Organic cotton is grown out of genetically modified seeds. It needs much less energy than conventional cotton and much less water. And the farmers who grow organic cotton are able to grow also other crops and are even reported to be able to sustain themselves much better because they're planting food. Not exposed to all the harmful substances which are used in conventional cotton. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if this number is 100% right, but where I researched at the Textile Exchange site, it was saying that only 0.7% of the world's production of cotton is organic cotton, which is that the transition from conventional cotton to organic cotton is quite hard for the farmers. During this transition phase, they have a lower harvest and cannot sustain themselves, and they would need help from the brands and the governments to survive this transition. But there is a big demand for organic cotton. I hope it will grow, definitely. Another more sustainable fiber is compared to cotton, uses 50% less water than conventional cotton to grow. And what is really interesting is that it's considered a carbon negative raw material, meaning that hemp plants absorb CO2 from the atmosphere. It has a lot of really good properties as well. For example, it has natural UV ray protection, and for everyone who was a lot and continue reading about, for example, here hemp. Unfortunately, expensive because it requires much more processing than cotton, and there's not a lot of hemp on the market due to the fact that it is until 2018 it's the plantation of cotton of hemp has been regulated. I'm seeing. Are you seeing the presentation still? Okay, sorry. Where was I? That there's not a lot hemp yet on the market, because until 2018 there have been a lot of regulations for the growth of cotton, because it's but these regulations have been taken away since 2018, and hopefully we will see more hemp on the market. The third category of fibers being used in the fashion industry, there I want to talk about are cellulosic fibers, like rayon. It's a fiber that's made out regenerated cellulose. A lot of solvents are deforestation is being involved in the production of rayon as well. Thousands of hectares of rainforest are being cut each year just to plant specifically trees to produce rayon. Just to explain short for you quickly, rayon fabrics are fabrics like viscose, modal, and cupro, and bamboo. But because in their production they're involved so many toxic chemicals, they're not considered environmental friendly. There is environmental friendly version of rayon, however, which is lyocell. Lyocell, in the production of lyocell, far less chemicals are being used, and it uses a closed loop process where almost 99% of the solvent and water consumed are recovered and reused for the next production coming. There's one brand that sells Lara that's called Tencel, that you can see on quite a lot on the market, and they use rayon based out of eucalyptus and grown out of sustainable harvested forests. The last category of fibers the fashion to talk about are animal fibers. Obviously, animal fibers come from animal, and as animals for their skin, hair in this case, uses up a lot of precious resources. Also, massive deforestation is involved in the production of animal fibers to make room for grazing, which leads to erosion and desertifications in a lot of parts of our world, for example, in Mongolia. And of course, very important to mention is that a lot of animal suffering is involved in the production of animal fibers. It's the most commonly used animal fiber in the fashion industry. Also here, all the previously mentioned problems are happening in the production of wool by sheep. 30% of Patagonia is affected by the overgrazing of sheep, and around 1 billion sheep are being bred only for the production of wool. On top of that, sheep release methane, which is a also sheep suffer terribly in the production of wool. Peter has released videos revealing that sheep are being mutilated, abused, and skinned alive. Those practices are not only being used in wool production, also for down and leather. So animal fibers coming from non-certificate very harmful for our animals. A good alternative to conventional wool is alpaca. Alpaca are mainly bred in in the Peruvian Andes, and by buying alpaca, you support a lot of indigenous communities in Peru who often lived under the poverty line. Alpacas are much more eco-friendly because they need much less grass. And they cut the grass instead of pulling it out, so the grass can grow again after alpacas have fed on it. Yeah, this is actually the last fabric I'm going to talk about today, but I encourage you to look up, of course, other fabrics like silk and leather and the sustainable alternatives. I also have a lot of information about those with you later. It's safe to say that sustainable materials will help reduce the carbon emissions of the fashion industry by a significant amount. But the volumes of sustainable fabrics are right now quite low compared to the conventional counterparts. Yeah, this number just has to increase to be able to accelerate the move from the industry. Here I show you a few certificates that you can look out for when you go shopping. They help you to judge the sustainability credentials of the brands you buy from, and most of those certificates help to track the materials from the farms to the shop, that they're really produced sustainably and without any harming of the animals. I will now talk about the second-hand market. What happens to your clothes once you don't want them anymore, when you throw them away. Unfortunately, there are a lot of clothes, as I already mentioned, are being thrown away. Actually, 1 truckload of clothing every second is being thrown away, dumped in landfills or incinerated. Or recycling, and only 40% of those garments land on the second-hand market. I've been talking here in Berlin to the manager of Textilhafen, which is an NGO from the city which collects the clothes from the containers and separates the clothes that need to be thrown away because they cannot be reused from the ones who can be reused on the street. Telling me that the low quality of the fashion industry is becoming a huge problem for them. They can use less and less garments that they collect from the containers, and actually the disposal and incineration of the garments are being much more expensive, and then the profits they make from the second-hand garments they are selling here in Berlin and some. We're actually kind of coming to a dead end when it comes to the second-hand market, and a lot of innovation and infrastructure has to be put in place to be able to use those resources. Another interesting fact is that less than 1% of old clothing is really being recycled into new fibers. This is due to the fact that key innovation processes needed are very complex or still in their developing stage, and therefore very expensive. There's a big lack of investment to upscale those technologies so they can be used on an industrial scale. Hopefully there will be more investment in the future so we can see more recycled clothes. And an interesting fact that I want to share with you is a new European regulation that has been put in place in 2018, which will be in place from 2025. It will ensure that all European countries will collect textile waste separately, which will mean a massive potential for circular models, because there will be much more resources and much more collecting systems from where the industry can source materials to recycle. Now I would like to give you, can become yourself more part of the solution than the problem that we're currently facing. First of all, I want to mention that it's very important that you buy less, or at least if you buy consciously good clothes that are durable. Ask yourself if you really need to buy the item you want. Maybe your friend has it and can lean it to you. Maybe you can swap clothes for a while with a friend, or maybe you can, instead of having it in your closet and only use it once or twice. Another thing that I would like to show you is something that you're probably all aware of unconsciously, but it's still very important for me to share this information with you, because I think a lot of people don't know the real numbers behind the fashion market, and actually 97% of and from these 20s, 12 have been in this ranking, in the upper ranking for the last decade, and have more than doubled their profits. So if you buy from smaller brands and more sustainable brands, you help them gain more market share and help them grow. Another I want to talk with you, or that I want to show you, is the Germany supply chain law that is currently being discussed. This law would oblige companies to prevent human rights and environmental violations in their business activities and supply chain. And if they don't oblige, they will face civil liability and risk sanctions. Currently, this law is being pushed back by the German government. Corona is used as an excuse by the economic minister. Oh, again, the presentation is gone. Sorry, guys. Oh, wait. Here, now I'm back. Well, as I mentioned, Corona is used as an excuse to not implement this law, because the minister is saying that this law would mean a big disadvantage for the German countries. But I completely disagree. I believe that if anything, Corona showed how messed up our industries are, and how we're exploiting the developing country and building our industries on the cost of them. And I think it's really important that this law is being implemented, because Germany would be the first country in the EU implementing this law, and I think other countries follow. You to sign a petition for this law, so it's not being pushed back anymore by the government. I will put the link here. It's in German though. If you need help, again, contact me later. I will help you. Yeah, another tip that I want to share with you is that by washing your clothes less, you also help a lot to footprint. If you wash at lower temperatures and less, of course, you use less water, and by washing synthetic garments, a lot of microplastic is released into the oceans, and there are right now no innovation or filters that we can put into our washing machines that will prevent this from happening. Another thing that you can do is buy eco laundry powders and detergents, because the conventional ones are mostly made of fossil fuels and are really toxic as well, and get into our water systems. I can also only encourage you. I can also encourage you to keep your clothes longer, because by keeping your clothes from 9 months to 1 year longer, you already decrease the footprint of one garment by 25%. Which is quite a high number, and this is this. Maybe you keep it so you can to a friend who would wear it before you throw it away and it lands up in the landfill. And of course, be aware of greenwashing. A lot of companies claim to use organic fibers or be sustainable without being. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of certificates that help you evaluate those claims by the companies. And I encourage you to spread the shared, and this is just the tip of the iceberg of things that one can know about their wardrobe or about the fashion industry. Here I have a list of more things that you can do as a consumer. I like to point out one important that I find really important, and that would be that I believe that everyone should be able or should learn how to sew and to if it falls off a jacket, because you increase the life of a garment by far. Just because a seam is broken doesn't mean that you have to throw away a garment. I, for example, as well, I use old cotton shirts that I cannot use anymore because they have a lot of stains as removable as makeup remover pads that that I wash with my laundry, so I can use them again, so I don't have to buy the cotton pads. Yeah, that was one point from this list that I wanted to point out to you. To all the professionals out there that are working in the fashion industry, there are more tips here for you. I can really only encourage you to learn more through the internet and through webinars and festivals like this one here today. I've been able to learn a lot by a 6-week course was for free from London College of Fashion. There are a lot of those things online, and just stay curious and build your own philosophy around sustainability. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. I think this is a learning process, and we are just humans. No one is perfect. Out there that are looking into making or building their own brand, or hopefully sustainable brand. There are a lot of dead stock fabrics that can be bought for cheap prices from big companies. Or, for example, I found a lot of fabrics through Facebook groups like this one on the picture here that's called Textil Stammtisch Berlin. I'm sure that in your city there are also groups like this that you can use. They are not using anymore. So it's a good source to start your brand. And I'm coming now to the end. I believe I don't have so much time anymore, although I'm not able to stop the time. I want to talk a little bit about innovations on the markets. This is just out now. A great innovation that could be coming in the future would be that we all have a digital avatar of ourselves with our measurements, and we would be able to shop online how do you say this? Virtually, exactly. Virtually, that was the word I was looking for. And that will help you to and then they come to you. If you order online, they come home and they don't fit you. Also, this would decrease a lot of overproduction in the industry, and will help the industry to make better fits for everyone. Since the measurement models that are being used are really outdated currently at a lot of brands. Production processes in the industry, especially around dyeing processes. Wrangler, for example, has designed a dyeing process where they use foam instead of water. They call it Indigo Good TM. And there's almost no water used in this process, and the foam can also be reused for more cycles of dyeing. And there's a company called RenewCell. RenewCell has a technology that dissolves used cotton and other natural fibers into pulp, biodegradable pulp, of which the industry can make yarns again. So yeah, it's a really great recycling process, and they're having their first plant in place. And I think they produced around 7,000 tons of this pulp last year. Again, grown and upscaled to make a bigger difference on the market. In the end, I would like to share my thoughts with you. I believe that the industry has to collaborate with a lot of stakeholders in order to implement a more circular model and become more sustainable. It's not only up to the brands, of course, as I already mentioned, it's also up to this change, and stakeholders like governments as well have to help to increase the infrastructure for the second-hand market, or the collecting of second-hand garments, for example. I think there's a lot of unused potential in the fashion industry currently, and if brands and governments take the responsibility to save ecosystems and help humans all over the world right now. So this is practically the end. There are 2 more slides where I share sources that I've been using for this presentation. I'm seeing you just seeing a blank screen. Let me share again. Okay. Sorry, I have to change the view. I don't know why the presentation has stopped. Ah, there I have it. So these are some sources that I like to share with you if you're interested. Sorry, I have to use the right window now. Those are reports that are really a lot of information and yeah, in the end, I would really like to thank you for your attention. Thanks for being patient. I know I made a lot of mistakes while speaking, but I had a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward as well to give a workshop that is more for professionals and students in the textile that are studying fashion design or something textile related. And again, I can just encourage you to less, buy better, buy more quality. And yeah, now we would have time for a little Q&A. I will now look into the chat if you have some questions for me personally or about the topics we just talked. I'm happy to answer, and I can also invite you to share so everyone can see you if you want to. Thank you, guys. Really. Honestly, I've been editing this presentation for a long time now, and I'm still over time, and I have so many slides still left that I could share with you. But yeah, I guess it will have to be a second workshop or a second presentation. So if none of you have more questions, I can continue talking a little bit interested or about the circular fashion, about circular fashion in general. Here's a question from Chiara. I hope I pronounced your name right. Really depends on where you live, I guess. Okay, Federico, I will check your question in a minute. First to Chiara. Yes, I believe there is a way to make sustainable design a priority in design schools. There are actually in sustainable fashion. I think it's something that still needs to grow, and I believe that in general, if in fashion studies like fashion design, as I studied, I think what is really needed as well is that the students get to go to field trips to factories to see most studies we just learn how the creative part, but I think it's becoming more and more important, especially for designers who will become industrial designers, to know all the difficulties in the production processes that the mills are facing, and being able to implement that knowledge already at in university and a lot of times when I started working. And I think there has to, the fashion education system has a lot to change, so to say. So we have more sustainable designers in the future and people working in the industry. Yeah, exactly. I think I've learned more through my working experience than I've learned during my studies. But I would not be able to point out one right now, but I also think you don't really need to study sustainable fashion, because I just realized, since I'm interested in sustainable fashion, you have all the knowledge you need out there in the internet, and there are a lot of companies like McKinsey or the Textile Exchange that publish really good reports that are really informative. So stay curious. Okay, Federico, I will check the question. I'm working on the most fashion brands products. My understanding is that from a production perspective, there is a better option than closed-loop recycled textiles when it comes to reducing a garment's footprint. If you put aside the current challenges, quality of the recycling textiles for a moment, what's your view on the potential of these materials? Okay, just to understand your question. Very that would be really good and would have consumers they buy clothes, if I understand right. What is my view on the potential of the I think the potential is huge. I think it's all goes down to the investment of companies and investors, how do you say, shareholders of the companies. I mean, right now we're living in a capitalist system where a fashion brand is not profitable or not its revenues compared to the year before. And from my perspective, this is a false message that the industry gives to us as consumers or in general. I really hope that brands will stop by doing only small projects and like, for example, plastic and designs, but this is really a small fraction of the products they sell. And yeah, but coming back to your question, I think there's a huge potential in closed cycled and circular processes for fabrics. I mean, if you look at the numbers that I shared or what I just told, how much clothing is being incinerated and to be able to use those. There is technology. There's also a company in the Netherlands that has developed a technology that makes it possible to it's with the optical sensor, I think, and the sensor can decipher the composition of huge problem right now. Garments that end up on the second in the garbage. you don't know the composition, so you cannot sort them correctly and process them in a closed loop circle. And technologies like that make it possible to accelerate the process of sorting, and we would gain much more does this answer your question? Okay, yeah, thanks you for the question. It's an interesting question. There are a lot of articles in the internet that you can read. There's one source I really recommend you. It's not only about recycled fabrics, but in general more sustainable fabrics. Let me see where. I will search it and send it to you later through the Hopin platform. It's from Textile Exchange, the last report they posted, actually. Yeah, the WARP report, the WARP REP report is also really good. Maybe that you guys, otherwise I see that there are still people in the session, so I will just continue saying a few things. I think in 10 minutes I will finish, because I barely can talk anymore. I need to drink some water. For example, when it comes to a fabric that we all know, anyone but its production is the production of denim is harmful than conventional cotton fabrics, because a lot of chemicals are being used in the dyeing process of denim, and dyeing workers worldwide are reporting having higher incident. They're higher worldwide